Welcome back to the channel. This is talkSPORT Endzone, your dedicated NFL channel from talkSPORT, where this weekend we are the home to 5 of the 6 playoff games across the talkSPORT network, exclusive live radio commentary. And ahead of our opening game of the weekend with the Houston Texans welcome the Los Angeles Chargers into their building, I'm delighted to say the man who had the week in Week 18, Dameon Pierce, joins the show now. Dameon, how are you doing, brother?
Good, brother. Glad to be here, man. Thank you for having me.
Look, firstly, congratulations on the AFC South title and making the playoffs again this year. What's the vibe like around the building ahead of this Chargers game this weekend?
Everything you just said, man. Even though we won the division, even though we hosted the playoff game, even though we coming off a good Week 18, that's just the tip of the iceberg. So the energy is, let's get back to work. Let's put our focus in. Being in the playoffs, let's put our focus on the next 4 weeks. How do we stack the next 4 games? How do we win the next 4 games to get to the Super Bowl? But with that being said, we're appreciative. We're enjoying the moment. We're glad to be here. But now it's about, preparation, execution, and preparing ourselves for Saturday.
I obviously want to ask you a little bit more about that, but we've got to start off with the 92-yard rushing touchdown, the longest rush of the season. Talk us through that play, how it felt in the moment to, basically go coast to coast.
I mean, you want to know initial reaction, man? I ain't went that long since Pee Wee. I was dead tired. I was just praying to watch the Jumbotron and I ain't get caught. 44, whoever 44 is very fast. That's a very fast dude. Shout out to 44, man. Had me nervous on the last 10 for sure. But like I said in the interview earlier, man, that 92-yarder, when the play goes 92 yards, that means everything top to bottom was executed pretty well. Everybody graded out on that play for sure. So, shout out to the O-line, shout out to my tight end, shout out to my receivers, man.
Well, it's funny you mentioned the Mike Brown thing. I watched it back again today, and he is 44, that is. He is lockstep with you during that last 15, 20 yards. He ends up pushing you into the end zone, basically. So, quite often I find with those runs, like you said, you looked up at the Jumbotron, guys 20, 30 yards out that they've got it. But you must have, every step of the way, been hearing those steps behind you.
I ain't gonna count. Last 10, I was nervous. I ain't gonna lie. The first 80, cool beans, all great, all gravy. Last 10, I was a little nervous.
Love that. Look, also lovely moment we saw with Joe Mixon going practically step for step with you down the sideline and then being the first in the end zone to come and congratulate you. What was that like? How cool is that? And how is your relationship with Joe built up over this year?
In the moment, it was cool. It was lit. It was a exciting moment. But looking back at it, I'm like, how did he not get a flag? He the only person out there without a helmet. He the only person out there without a helmet on, but that's Joe, man. That's Joe in a nutshell, man. Ball and energy, high energy guy, high intensity guy who loves football, loves being around the building, easy guy to play with, man. Great guy to be in the room with, love Joe. Great mentor. He's a great example of what I want to be in the league, 1,000-yard, consecutively 1,000-yard back. That's every running back's dream. Especially over the career he has built, very proud of him. And, just excited to be in the same room. Just glad to be able to say, hey, I shared a running back room with Joe Mixon, man. It's a blessing for sure.
He's a guy who, a lot of people had question marks over the trade. Obviously, it's just a late round pick swap in terms of the value. But you mentioned those back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons. Running backs, it's tough on your body, that position. And people were asking whether he'd still have it in the tank. How impressed have you been with what he has managed to achieve this season? And like you say, he's called him a great mentor. What do you think you've learned from him?
I've always been a fan of Joe. So, it's very seldom that you actually get, you're actually able to be in a room with, those Saquons, those Joes, those Christians, you know what I'm saying? Those Derrick Henry. So just, I'm just being a sponge, man. Whatever seeds he dropping, whatever. Because he always, he's very knowledgeable of the game. That was most people, underestimate about Joe. He's very knowledgeable of the game. He's a very outspoken person. So, when we're in meetings or whatever the case may be, he'll probably tap me and be like, hey, man, you see this right here? Just dropping nuggets, man. And me as a young guy, I'm picking them up, try to add to my game.
I also love that you gave the shout out to the O-line, the receivers, everyone involved in that play. The interior of the line has had some question marks over it this year. We've seen CJ under some pressure in that area, but this was a just classic inside zone run and they broke open a huge hole for you. So Do you see positive signs from that line? Do you see positive signs of growth that they can, sustain a playoff run that you're talking about?
Yes, of course. I really hate the backlash that they get a lot of times because most people just see, oh, CJ got sacked, O line sucks. Oh, CJ got sacked. We need a whole new O line next year. Oh, CJ gets sacked. We need to address the O line in this year's draft. Like, bro, what they don't understand, bro, the O linemen are the only people other than the quarterback who has every snap of the football game. Defensive linemen get subbed out with DBs, probably corners. Corners are probably next on that list. But other than corners, I feel like the interior, like our O linemen are the guys who are on the field, play in, play out. And then in our scenario, in our case, we get a guy injured. You asking a guy who usually, for example, like Titus plays right tackle. You asking Titus to go to left guard. How hard, you know what I'm saying? Left guard for play in, play out, for the whole duration of the game. So I'm really impressed with those guys up front, just naming Titus for just one example. I'm really impressed with those guys up front, how well they've adapted, rather than, not so much talking about performance because you can always fix performance. But in terms of, us getting guys in, us dealing with injuries, our guys stepping up, like for example, J Pat stepping up when Juice went down, like you can't really overlook that. I think most people don't appreciate like the work that those guys are putting in and the work that Coach Stroud puts in with those guys to make sure they're very detailed and very, just on their job when they're on the field. So I really don't like the backlash we get with our O-line, but I'm in those guys' corner every step of the way because I see the work they put in off the field. So
There's obviously one guy on that line in Laramie Tunsil as well, who will be in kind of Canton conversations when he retires. He will be at that level. And on that play back to the 92-yarder, there's a second level block that I had to go back and watch it about 4 times to realize that Laramie Tunsil has covered that kind of 7 or 8 yards of ground as quick as you've hit the hole, because it's crazy athleticism.
Oh yeah. Like it kind of, LT's kind of in that Joe conversation. You see generational guys, you just kind of glad to be around them. Like you get so caught up in the X's and O's, but you gotta see who those X's and O's are. We got Laramie Tunsil out there, man. Like you said, he covered 5-6 yards and just like that, and that's what puts him in those Canton talks. That's why he's the type of player he is. That's why he's one of the elite tackles in the game because Laramie understands angles. He understands what we need on the play. Like he never does too much because he's a vet. He's been in the game a long time. He always in position. He's rarely out of position. I get on to him. We got a little running joke going. I always give him one. I always give him one false start a game. Everybody mess up. Ain't nobody perfect. Ain't nobody perfect. I always give him one a game. That's our little running joke, man. But big ups to LT. Big ups to him. Being a captain in that O-line room, being a leader in that O-line room, and all the things he done for us, are amazing.
And just 2 guys I want to ask you about before I do mention the Chargers game. CJ Stroud, mentioned him briefly at the top, but tough second year for him comparatively with that first year when it was just plaudits galore and he was being hailed as this kind of second coming. But there is clearly an incredible young man there. So tell us a bit about what it's like being around him, what he's like in the locker room, and what you feel like with him under center.
Love being around CJ. At the quarterback position, it comes a lot of scrutiny. It comes a lot of love you this day, hate you the next. It comes a lot of pressure. Just comes, it's a lot of things coming at you in many directions. That's every athlete, but more so, I feel like it's more so, more prominent on the quarterback position. So the way he's handled that, he's grounded in his faith. You could tell he has a great circle around him. His mom's very supportive, his people very supportive, and he's a level-headed guy. He's a cool guy naturally, so it takes a lot to knock him off his pivot. And one of the best competitors I've been around. He's a very competitive guy. He's a very prepared guy. I love the way he prepares for games and just what he's done in this short career span. And he's in his short 2 years that he has in the league. It's just amazing to see what he's done. And I can only imagine what the next 10 years are going to look like for that guy. I'm excited for him. Love playing with him. Love being in the huddle with him. And again, he's one of those guys you just appreciate being around. Because when you done playing, you know, I can say I played with CJ Stroud. You know what I'm saying? He's one of those guys. So just glad to be part of the journey and just see him develop into, you know, one of the premier quarterbacks in the league is fine.
Love all of that. And then Coach Slowik requested for head coaching conversations again this week. You know, a guy who may not be in your building much longer, but another guy who has been a lot of talk about this year. So talk to us about Coach.
Coach Slow, man. Bobby, man. Hey, that's our guy right now. You know, we always, you know, when we get together as an O, you know, he's very animated. He's the guy who's bringing us the juice in the morning. When it's 8 o'clock meetings, he's bringing the juice. He got his coffee ready. He ready to roll. But you know, Slow is definitely a mastermind. You know, defenses do a lot to throw what Slow has going off. You know, they throw everything at him. He always has the answer. That's one thing I like about Slow. Slow always has the answer, and when he doesn't, he gonna find one. So you know, Slow's a great guy. You know, and just the simple fact that he's getting, you know, calls to be a head coach to, you know, speak for itself in terms of what kind of coach he is, what caliber coach he is, and what he can bring to a team. But I love what he does for us. You know, he try to get everyone involved. He try to make things as simple as possible when he can. Sometimes we gotta put our big boy pants on, play football, you know, and just memorize the play. But you know, whenever he can help us out with like shortening the play or putting a certain tag on the play for us to make things more simple, you know, he does, you know, in a heartbeat. And he loves his guys, man. He loves seeing us go out there and ball. And that's just one of the coaches that makes you want to play harder for him. You know what I'm saying? Like, and then that just Slow, man. Bobby, he brings the juice, brings the energy, and I'm glad to be part of it.
And then just getting onto the game this weekend, and I just want to give Texans fans a little bit of hope, because you know Chargers are coming in as road favourites, but you have faced a Jim Harbaugh team previously. They were heavy favourites when you faced Michigan back in the 2018 Peach Bowl, and if I remember correctly, the Florida Gators gave them a bit of a beatdown. So we've got Dameon Pierce going up against Jim Harbaugh. We've got the good luck charm on our side, right?
Yeah, I would love to hope. I would love to hope so. I would love to hope so for sure. But you know, the Chargers are one of those teams that just right there. You know, all year. You know, Herbert went down earlier in the year. You know, they just had things not go their way. But you know, like any good NFL football team, they found a way to win when they needed to win, and now they're in the playoffs. So now we, as the Texans, you know, we're going against a very well coached Harbaugh team, like you mentioned before. You know, those guys are going to come in to play. You know, they have a point to prove. They got chips on their shoulder. But at the same time, you know, we have a chip on our shoulder as well. You know, we kind of felt like we should have beat, you know, KC. We felt like we were in the game. We were in that game. We had opportunity to win that game. And obviously, we felt like we didn't put up our best performance against Baltimore. You know, two of the heavy hitters in the AFC. So, you know, we got our own chip on our shoulder and our point to prove to ourselves first and foremost. You know what I'm saying? So it's going to be a great matchup, you know, with two NFL playoff teams. And that's what you should expect, you know?
Love it. Dameon, really appreciate your time, man. You've given us plenty of it ahead of this game on Saturday, live and exclusive on talkSPORT here in the UK. Appreciate you, man, and good luck for Saturday.
Thank you, man.